All right, welcome to another edition of RSG One Mic. You can join the underground by checking us out at realsportsguys.com on all podcast platforms and as well as social media platforms. Let me bring my colleagues into the conversation. Hailing from the South Side of Chicago, my man Carl the Hammer Hampton. What's up, man?
Doing well, man. Just happy to see football again. It's good football. Obviously a little rusty, some interceptions, and especially the beginning of the game, where all those penalties by offensive line not lining up correctly. So kind of rustiness, but still, it's great to see NFL football back, man.
Yep, NFL football is back. As we're taping this, we got the Ravens and the Chiefs on, and trying to work it out. But it's still a lot of good stuff going on as well. So we love it. And from the city known as Ypsilanti, Michigan, but for those who are in the know, it's Ipsy. My man, the youngin. What's up, the young scholar, Darnell Kirkland Jr. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Good to be back on. There's a lot of stuff we missed and a lot of stuff we're gonna talk about today. But one thing I'm gonna get down. But one thing I would say before we get into it is, man, that Caitlin Clark, she's killing it. She's killing the game. And one thing I want to do is give her props before we do anything else. The last couple weeks, I know we haven't been on, but she's been really doing her thing. So I wanna get that out the way.
It sound like when we drop the mic, you gonna be giving out some flowers. Yeah, she's doing her thing, man, and we said from the beginning the game is it's a meritocracy. It's one of those things where you when you show it, you got to just give it, and I know there's some haterade and you can people come back, but she balling. And, like any young player, there's things that's got to round out. You got to be able to do some things on both sides of the floor. But she's balling. Like, she is in her mix. I think the break for, was really good. I think she was already being strong, but I think that break was good for her. And I think some of the other, young stars to kind of reset and then get ready for that run. And, their team is playing well. I saw some of the changes. So, yeah, man, I know we've been off a little bit, but, yeah, she cooking. She cooking. Like the way that's flowing. But it's football season, and so one of the things that we do in football season here on RSG, is that one of the things that we cover is because we're local, so we do the local before we go global, is the RSG live at the Badgers. So Hammer and I are usually hitting all the Wisconsin Badgers games locally, and that's one of the things we do. And so we'll do a little segment to kind of pull out what we're seeing given the Badgers, Luke Fickell is in his second year. He had a lot of success at what he did at Cincinnati. Obviously, he comes from that Buckeye tree over there, and there's a lot of energy and hype. We talked about it. You go back, listen to that podcast when he was hired. There's a lot of debate around where this is going. Obviously bringing in new systems on both sides of the ball. And if you had a chance to check out Hammer and I doing our previous podcast, one of the things we started out prior to the Western Michigan game, Hammer and I laid out some keys that we thought were important about the season. And the reason why we did that, because we wanted to then track, how they're making progress or not with each game. And one of the things that, I talked about is in establishing a program, you got to make a place like Camp Randall a tough place to play. It's got to feel it. I've watched a number of games there, and when it's rocking, you got to make it a tough place to play. Part of what that is as much as people talk about Wisconsin's running game, it's been the defensive side of the ball. For a long time, they've been a top five defense. They've got a lot of folks who went on to play on Sundays, and part of that, the part of the expectation was that Trussell was going to bring, as someone who was up for award for top assistant and coordinator, he was going to bring that pedigree to Madison in terms of the defensive side of the ball. And then the other side, is being able to run the football, being in control of the line of scrimmage. The offensive coordinator talked a lot about. Everybody thinks about, the offense they're running, and they think about it as, you're just going to be slinging around. But they are in his mind very very balanced. So there's some keys. One of the things that came up, Hammer pointed out, and then I'll turn it over to Hammer, that we pointed out was it was a really good stat. We played it out. Hammer identified a certain number of rushing attempts, and if they had those rushing attempts, they were basically undefeated last year. Right. So Hammer, I don't know if you want to talk about that. And that kind of stood out because you and I tracked that the entire game. But
Yeah.
those are some things that we talked about. We had a couple other things, but I just kind of want to set the table on that in terms of those observations.
No, it showed again. If last year the Badgers rushed for 35 times or more, they were 7-0, and when they did not rush 35 times, they were 0-6. So it's kind of indicative of what happened last year as far as Badger football tried to bring a new era or innovation, and it maybe should have been the same old Badgers. They're just a different type of coach, different type of leadership, because clearly the players weren't listening to Coach Chris anymore. That's why he got fired midseason, and they didn't listen well enough to Jimmy Leonard, why he didn't get the full-time gig. But that's the thing, is that we got balance, and still you look at Friday's game against Western Michigan. Just again is a dink and dunk, and just not innovative on the passing the ball, and running the ball was much more. I mean, we had a new kid from Oklahoma, Tawee brought it, as well as Chaz came back, Malusi came back, but again, you just kind of saw them going through the motions as far as the passing game, and really they made hay when they ran the ball, kind of old Badger style, and not this air raid. And then you saw on the defensive side of the ball, no pass rush again. Did not get a sack. It was a coverage sack near the end of the game, and missing tackles again, like happened last year. So, I'm not a Tressel fan. Just say that much. He got fired from Michigan State, correct? And came back to Cincinnati, did well, but I just haven't seen it. And I think it's an indictment on him that Jack Del Rio is now in Madison as a special advisor to Luke Fickell. Reminds me kind of Pat Shermer was a special assistant to Dion, or offensive assistant, and look what happened. He became OC at the end of last year for the Buffs as well as this year. So might be foreshadowing what might happen, because that defense was not explosive. Western Michigan seemed to be able to run the ball at will. Our brother Buckley really balled out. And yeah, it's the first game of the year, so everyone's just shaking off the rust and blah, blah, blah. But it seemed like the same nightmare last year, and I thought I had woken up from the nightmare and it was awake. But I saw the same nightmare last year of the dink and dunk, non-explosive receivers not be able to separate from guys who were, who weren't recruited by Madison or anybody. And you had a situation where the pass rush non-existent, even though you had a kid from William Mary, who was who was recruited in the portal. But yeah, same old. So I hope in South Dakota, I hope we see something bigger. And it's just disappointing. Time the Badgers.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at, Jalen Buckley had 64 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns, but it almost felt like he had like 150 yards, right? I mean, this is a guy that was he got freshman All-American honors. Kid can run, but it felt like when I looked at it, I was like, he was getting 4 yards a carry. Like, it was like, and if it wasn't for a muff punt, Western Michigan might have walked out of there with the victory.
Yeah.
I mean, it basically came down to somebody getting hit with the ball that changed the momentum a little bit. And so, when we talk about Camp Red, the fans came out. The students were there early. I don't know if that was the alcohol, being sold in the arena now or whatever. But right, the energy was there. So the fans brought the energy, to make that place a tough place.
They booed the Badgers, so they were hyped up. I mean, they were clearly in the game, but yeah, Badgers weren't. But yeah, again, it's game one. But they're gonna look at the tape and figure it out. But again, I see the same thing where you just don't have the receivers being able to separate. And yeah, again, the running game was good, but yeah, the passing. I mean, we got a good defensive backfield as one of our strengths. But if you don't get pressure, I don't care if you Deion Sanders. if you got no pressure, they're gonna eventually find a crease on you. So it's just a disappointing game. But again, I have my hope for my Badgers, and I just kind of hope they go with old Badger football and show a little more innovation, which I thought would be the air raid would be about, instead of just. But it seemed like again that Van Dyke seemed very pedestrian. Seemed why he had to leave Miami, especially seeing how Miami did on Saturday. We see why he had to leave there, because Brother War was going to beat him out anyway. And so you have a situation where, it was a disappointing game. I think there were boos for a reason. I'm glad the Badgers won, but you're right, D. Wils, they were flirting with big upset. Heartache from the get-go, yeah. So.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if we're going to learn a lot here with South Dakota. I mean, South Dakota basically played a Division II team. They won 45, whatever. But, you got Alabama coming in a week from Saturday, and I'm not sure. And I was talking to somebody today about this. And, the thing that the offense I knew was going to come along. The thing that I am, because they were hitting in preseason, the thing that threw me off, I just not seeing it with the defense. And they got some players. They brought some folks in, and against teams like Alabama, historically, when they played LSU in those places, the defense at least held in when the offense was trying to develop. And I just don't see anything that tells me, and I felt like the reason why Del Rio's there, and and they tried to bring Vrabel in, right, is
Mm-hmm.
it feels like and this is where Darnell can help, because you watch Ohio State. That three. I know the 3-3-5 is, but that don't feel like his DNA. Like, it feels like he's having this internal conflict about how he wants to play defense, and I don't know if he bought into something, but it just doesn't feel like his DNA. And you watched Fickle for a long time, and the school he came from, and he's a former defensive lineman. Doesn't feel like the style he would play.
I mean, Fickle, he was running 3-3-5 at Cincinnati.
Yeah, but I think he had to do that because of the way the talent was down there. But I don't. But he's at Ohio State. They don't run that at Ohio State, right?
No.
No, but if you look at it, there's evolution there. It's evolution. They actually started running a version of the 3-3-5 with Jim Knowles,
Mm-hmm.
but they got away from it because the teaching of Larry Johnson isn't necessarily it doesn't. They don't necessarily agree as far as
Yeah.
like you said, 3-3-5 versus the 4 down kind of look. So ever since that first year happened, they kind of got away from that 3-3-5 look. Jim Knowles calls it the jack that they but it's really 4 down linemen. It's just one of them stands up, and he can end up dropping on any at any particular time. But yeah, they're definitely they do some 3-3-5 in there, but it's definitely an evolution to where even Fickle, when Fickle was at Ohio State, when he was a player, they were 3-4, and then starting to add,
Yeah.
started to take one of those linebackers away, making them a nickel to making them a nickel to help with the pass defense. There's some evolution there, but
Yeah, and it just
you can see how he went from being an odd front guy
yeah.
to also now being an odd front guy as well, just in a nickel space. So, like you said, where he's at Cincinnati, they're not necessarily getting the guys that they would get at Ohio State. They're not getting, the defensive tackles they have there with
Yeah.
Ty Hamilton, so on and so forth. So I understand that as well. They bring different type of pressures and stuff from all different kinds of angles that can really be disruptive.
Yeah, I think. I'm glad you kind of put that together, and it just feels like either they're not grasping it and they're not there, particularly in how they are getting their fits around the run game and doing it, and it just don't feel like it. Put like this, and this Darnell, this is where you can help. They're not changing the line of scrimmage, right? It feels like they're not on defensive line. They're not changing the line of scrimmage.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, would you say that, Carl? I mean, I just don't. It doesn't seem
Yeah,
like
yeah. I
that.
mean, there was no,
Yeah, it seems
there's
like
no. I
they're
mean, and
reacting.
simply
Yeah,
they're
they're
not down
catching.
up.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's no pressure. I mean, it's not
yeah.
down. I mean, there's no pressure at all. No tackles for loss. No
Yeah,
sack.
if I wasn't, if I didn't watch this game. I didn't watch this game, but if you watched, and I haven't really watched a whole lot of Luke Fickle at
Yeah, yeah.
Wisconsin yet, but if you watched him at Cincinnati, that wasn't the case. They were getting after guys.
Yes.
You know, they were causing problems.
It seemed like it was a lot more havoc,
Yeah, they
right,
had
at Cincinnati, and it just seems
no.
like they're not. I'm not seeing that, and I think they got the same kind of players, probably better
I don't
on
know
a
about
few
that. I think
places.
the talent is. I think the talent is lacking, man. Really, I mean, I'm seeing Chanel, and I'm seeing this. I mean, you talk all you want about Chris, but Chris Biden seemed to bring better talent than Fickle apparently has the fifth best class in 2025 or something like that. So we'll see. But just these transfers, this Pius kid
Yeah,
was
this is week 2, but like you said, you're talking about transfer.
This is you become Western Michigan, bro. I mean, you ain't talking about Michigan.
That's a big thing too. Like,
Michigan,
you even saw what Michigan was having a hard.
Tough time with Fresno. I think there's a bigger thing to that. You got Harbaugh now. You got Moore trying to.
But I would say having a hard time with Fresno State with a program that goes to a lot of places and plays tough against a lot of top talent. Like Fresno State's not a pushover program.
Western got some kids though. Western is decent.
I know Western got a few kids. They do. That Buckley kid can play.
Yeah, they got a few kids,
right? But they're not Fresno State. Like Fresno will travel and get you. Fresno got a reputation. They don't lay down. It's like Utah State used to be. Some of these folks like they come rough. They come rough with it. So I can see the Fresno thing a little bit. Well, we'll let it go. We're gonna see what happens. We're not gonna draw a lot out of the South Dakota thing. What I hope to see is probably much more aggressive. We need to see some more explosive plays on offense. But Bam, we're not gonna have anything answered until Bama come a week from Saturday. I'm pretty much sure on that. So we'll keep tracking what's happening with the Badgers. We'll get young Darnell, even though he's not in Madison, get some eyes on what's happening. So he might be able to pull some things out. But y'all check us out. Hammer and I will be at the game. We'll be updating y'all on what's going on. If you got some Badger fans out there, let us know what you think. Please check us out. Hit us up at realsportsguys.com. Give us some feedback on this.
Ready for the day the Lord called on me. The my decisions, man, they all on me. I can't get this away from
Hey, yo, Neil. Hey, what's up? I got you. Got you. Yeah. R.I.P. Grammy. Free my brother.